Go for it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Boffer Artillery. The Orphan is joining me once again today. And our subject for today's video is going to be a kind of common question I see come up on a lot of forums. The issue of what should we have on the end of a one-armed engine? Are we talking a sling or a spoon? And yeah, there's a quick, simple, easy answer to that. The sling is the more effective answer, but let's take a look at the whys. We can answer this from two different ways. We can either use history, or we can use modern ballistics and modern physics to test this. But let's look at it from the historical perspective first. Now, Hollywood and a lot of modern depictions, things from about the 1800s on, will show catapults with a spoon on the end of their arm. You can load all sorts of things, be it one big rock, a whole bunch of little rocks, a dead horse supposedly into this, flaming pots, whatever. And that is the idea of the spoon. So the arm extends for its length, widens out into a depression, and that is the spoon. I'm sure most of us, for our first catapults when we were children, loaded some little bits of food into a dinner spoon, slammed the end, and sent food flying. I know I got in trouble for that on a few occasions when I was a kid. Now, is there any historical basis for this? And the answer is, there is a little, but there is not a lot. All of our historical basis for this comes from the later part of the pre-modern era. The Da Vinci catapult, for example, uses a spoon on the end of its arm. There is a picture in a manuscript dating from roughly the time of Da Vinci, from the Netherlands, that also shows a spoon on the end of the arm, and it is pointed out as an exception to the norm, and it is intended with a particular machine that is for throwing incendiary devices. And that is one particular machine, one rare exception. The vast majority of the artwork that we have, some of which should be appearing on your screen, shows a sling on the end of a catapult arm. This is actually something that shows up in artwork dating back as far as the 4th century BC in both the Mediterranean and in China. So our artistic history says we should use a sling. What does the literature state? Well, we only actually have one technical source detailing one-armed engines from the early part of the period, and that is Ammianus Marcellinus's piece, and he says that it should be a sling attached to the end of the arm. He specifically says that it should be either flaxen or actually made out of chain. Now, how exactly that would be made is up for some degree of debate, but the end of the arm in that piece is a sling. One Chinese source tells us that we should have a sling on the end. Now, our historical evidence says sling rather than spoon. What does our modern evidence say? Well, again, if you look at Hollywood, they stick a spoon on the end of all sorts of machines. One resource out there says that A mangonel is an onager that has a spoon arm instead of a sling arm. That source is, again, late period and a little bit off in its usage. So, what advantages does the sling have over the spoon? First, with the sling, you can actually adjust the angle of release, which allows you to adjust the range of the engine without any sort of significant alterations to the machine itself. With the same projectile, you can alter the release to be on a flat trajectory, on a higher trajectory. This will allow for the projectile to either hit the face of a wall or hit on top of a roof. You're looking at the ability to, like I said earlier, adjust range, and that in and of itself is a huge advantage. More importantly, the sling actually increases the range of the engine. The sling acts as an extension of the arm. If you watched one of my previous videos, the mechanical dissection of the soft kitty, you'll remember how I said the less mass at the end of the arm, the faster the arm will travel. Well, if you make the sling fairly long, you are getting an almost weightless extension of the arm without any sort of real penalty in terms of strength of the machine. Now, you do have to make your sling strong. You have to make sure the ropes or chains connecting it to the arm are very strong. But that is, once again, a free increase to the length of the arm, which means more force, more power, greater range, greater striking power. Additionally, by adjusting the length of the sling itself, you can, much as adjusting the angle of release, alter the trajectory and range of the engine. Doing this on the fly is far easier than having to retune the engine or adjusting your projectile weight or any number of other things that you can do to make fine fixes. This is something that's quick and easy to do. Now, from an engineering perspective, putting a spoon on the end of the machine has another huge issue. If you recall from the Soft Kitty video, the arms of these engines, be they two-armed engines, be they one-armed engines, whatever, almost always have some degree of taper to them. That taper serves to lighten the load of the sling, or lighten the load of the arm, excuse me. That arm, by being narrower, has less mass. It moves faster. Then, the sling does not put any additional weight past the narrowest point of the arm. You have the weight of the projectile, and that's pretty much it. However, if you were to put a spoon on, you have the arm going from its widest point at the axle, getting narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower until it comes to as close to a point as you can get reasonably at the end of the arm. Then it widens back out suddenly into a spoon shape, and you have a very heavy weight right at the end of the arm. So you've got the weakest part of the arm, which is that narrow tapered point, with a massive weight immediately behind it. Thus, you're introducing a massive weak point in the machine, something that is very likely to break. Now, on a trebuchet, in period, this would have been catastrophic because those machines are huge and difficult to get the parts for. On a one-armed torsion engine, that would have been even more catastrophic for the simple reason that when you replace the arms of a torsion engine, you have to replace the spring. and weaving one of those springs can be a several hour-long process. Generally speaking, when you are shooting one of these things, you are either in practice, and thus, okay, breaking is bad but not terrible, or in a combat situation, in which case your equipment breaking like that can lead to you having a significant emotional event. So, in summary, the historical evidence says we should have slings on the end of the arm. The ballistic evidence, from ability to affect range, ability to increase our power, and our ability just to repair the engine, or rather not have the engine break in the first place, is all maximized by the use of a sling as opposed to a spoon. I hope you guys found that interesting. If you want to know more, links to my books will be in the description below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Tschüss!